Palace have conceded 10 goals in the last 2 games, so it shouldn't be too hard to break them down. Hello and welcome back to the Premier League preview on my channel. As you can tell, or you should be able to tell, I sound a little bit clearer this week. This is because Santa has been very nice to me over the Christmas period, and I now have a new microphone, which is currently here, just on my chest. So the date is the 27th, which is the Sunday, and I'm recording this before Leeds and Burnley have kicked off on what would be their Boxing Day game of fixtures, but obviously it's the day after. So I'm recording this before Monday and Tuesday's fixtures, and we'll take a look at what is going on and who should we be looking out for this week in the Premier League. So without further ado, let's jump into this week's fixtures. So the first game on Monday night sees Crystal Palace take on Leicester, Chelsea then take on Aston Villa, and Everton and Manchester City round off proceedings, both in good form and both looking to progress and close that gap on Liverpool at the top of the league. So there are 5 games to look forward to on Tuesday night, as well as always, a 2-minute Tuesday, so keep tuned for that. But there are 4 games at 6 o'clock, which include Brighton, who take on Arsenal, Burnley then take on Sheffield United, Southampton take on West Ham, West Bromwich Albion then take on Leeds, and the final game on Tuesday night is Manchester United, who host Wolves. The fixtures are then rounded off with Tottenham, who host Fulham, and Newcastle United take on the champions Liverpool. Lots of interesting games, but who will come out on top? So without further ado, we will jump into this week's Players to Watch. So the first player I have chosen to watch in this week's Players to Watch section is Jamie Vardy. Jamie Vardy scored a goal against Manchester United at the weekend and he looked impressive. He's been on fire so far this season and is, as always, up there as one of the top goal scorers for the Golden Boot, and is looking again to retain his Golden Boot in the Premier League. At the age of 33, you'd have thought Jamie Vardy would have started to have dropped off now, but he has been in sensational form. And I personally love Jamie Vardy as a footballer and as a character. In football, he's one of those players I think everybody loves. I think it's hard not to love Jamie Vardy. This week, Leicester take on Crystal Palace, and I think Jamie Vardy's pace will be vitally important to break down this Crystal Palace side. Palace have conceded 10 goals in the last 2 games, so it shouldn't be too hard to break them down, but with a goal scorer such as Jamie Vardy, I think he could do a fantastic job, and I think he could get a few goals here. At the weekend against Aston Villa, despite being a man down for quite a huge chunk of the game, Villa still managed to beat Crystal Palace 3-0, and I think that shows some deep problems at the club, and I think they need to get this sorted out quicker and sooner rather than later, because we saw what happened under Frank de Boer. We saw what happened under him, and they went sort of 10 games and then they got a good run of form when Roy Hodgson come in, and I'm hoping this isn't the end for Roy Hodgson as Crystal Palace manager, but it does look like a very, very bad turn of form after a few good wins as well, and to go from beating teams 3 or 4-0 and beating Manchester United on the opening day, it's been a real turnaround these last couple of games, and it is a cause for concern, but I don't think Crystal Palace fans should be too worried at the moment. If against Leicester they cannot get into their groove and their swing of things, then maybe Crystal Palace fans will need to take a harder look at their team, and Roy Hodgson will need to take a harder look at his team and decide whether the future of many of their players should be staying there if they cannot have the attitude to, spark up a good result against a good Leicester side, don't get me wrong, but against Aston Villa, they should have probably walked away with some points there, especially with a man down, but Aston Villa walked all over them and blew them away. That's why I think Vardy is very important, because I think he could and maybe should expose a lot of the cracks that we see in this Crystal Palace team that Liverpool quite easily exposed and Aston Villa did as well. The second player I have chosen in this week's Players to Watch section is Fernando Torres. He scored on Saturday for Manchester City, And I've been really impressed with him so far this season. I think he's been one of those players who's gone a little bit under the radar, but in the Champions League specifically, he has been a great talent for Manchester City. I think it's important that Manchester City keep him fit, especially at the moment with Aguero and Jesus coming in and out of the team, struggling with injuries and struggling for fitness. I think having someone who can play as a false nine or a main striker is really important to this Manchester City side, and he's chipped in with a few goals this season, and I think again his goals will be very important against a team such as Everton, who we've seen have big centre halves. You know, they can defend well, they can attack well. I think he will be very important. Fernando Torres is one of those players who I think is really going to develop into a good talent. He doesn't look like a top player at the moment. You get a few glimpses, but he's a very consistent performer. And I think Manchester City will need consistent performers against the likes of a team such as Everton, who are doing very well so far this season. And they'll need these consistent performers to be consistent, that's all you can say. And especially when Raheem Sterling, Kevin De Bruyne, Aguero, Jesus aren't necessarily firing like you're used to them seeing, then someone like him who'll chip in with 5, 6 goals, 7 goals a season could be really vital in what could be a stalemate with the form of both teams this season. The final player I've chosen to watch this week is Declan Rice. The reason I've chosen Declan Rice is I've actually been really impressed with him so far this season. I know quite a few of my friends aren't the biggest of fans of Declan Rice, but I think he's been really good so far. West Ham had a bit of a wobble against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago, and I think against the side such as Southampton there'll be a lot of midfield play, and I think that's where the game will be won or lost for West Ham or Southampton this weekend. Therefore, the reason I have chosen Declan Rice is because he is a strong presence in the middle of that West Ham United team. He is the vice-captain of the team at such a young age, and that is credit to him. That shows how good he has been. And like Fernando Torres, I think his contributions to the team go a little bit under the radar, and I think that's why he's such a good player, because from the outside people don't appreciate how well he does. In a midfield, in a game that is going to be dominated by midfield battles, I think it's vitally important that Declan Rice gets a hold of this game and cuts out the likes of James Ward-Prowse and Che Adams and stop them from doing what they do best. So that concludes this week's Premier League preview. If you do enjoy, be sure to like and subscribe and stick around on my channel. We've of course, as I mentioned earlier, got a 2-Minute Tuesday coming on Tuesday. Make sure to let me know down in the comments section below who you think a player to be watched will be for the midweek fixtures. Do you agree? Do you think Declan Rice should be a player to watch this week? Fernando Torres? Let me know, all in the comments section below. Thank you for your support so far this year. I hope you've had a really Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on my next video. Cheers!